Welcome to Hospitality on the Rise, the podcast about the people shaping the hospitality industry and their journeys. I'm your host, Alice Cheng, founder and CEO of Culinary Agents, hospitality's go-to hiring platform. And I'm here to give you your dose of virtual mentorship. Here, we'll be sharing the stories, lessons learned, and advice from hospitality leaders who've carved out their own path to success. After all, this industry is where many get their start and go on to do incredible things. Whether you're a pro, starting out, or just love the hustle, this podcast highlights what makes hospitality extraordinary: the people. We're so excited to have Shuai Wang with us today. Chef Shuai is the owner and chef of Jackrabbit Philly, heritage-driven new Chinese-American restaurant, and King Barbecue, Chinatown-style barbecue with Southern smoke, both in North Charleston. He's the co-founder of Charleston AAPI Collective, Charleston's first AAPI organization, and South Carolina Chef Ambassador. Oh, can't wait to hear more about these things. And of course, for those of you who are not up to date, he was a season 22 finalist, 2025 with Bravo's Top Chef. Welcome, Shuai.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I'm so excited. How did it all begin? How did you get into this industry?
Oh gosh. I guess I've always been surrounded by good food growing up, in the Chinese household. Growing up in Beijing and just always been, like loved eating, so just very passionate about food always. I honestly did not think I would be a chef at any point in my, you know, childhood, and just happened to had taken a culinary program in high school to make up some extra credits, and just kind of fell in love with it. And my chef had us read the Kitchen Confidentials when it first came out, and when I was reading Chef Bourdain's book, and just it's like one of those books talking about cooking in the kitchen, there hot fires and sharp knives and going out partying. So I feel like I got into the industry for all the wrong reasons. But once I went to culinary school, which I went to the Art Institute of New York City, which was right down in Chinatown, and I just kind of fell in love with food, and it's something that I was particularly good at. And I feel like when I was growing up, I had so much uh, ADD that I couldn't sit still at anything. But like cooking, I just felt I was in the right place. Yeah, and it's from there on, just worked really hard, and now I'm here.
And here we are. We
Very
just condensed your whole career into 1 minute. And when you say when you were younger and you're cooking, you were you cooking like with your family? Did you help out in the kitchen? Was that like kind of second nature and natural?
Yeah, I remember growing up in Beijing, and especially during the holidays, like Chinese New Year, our family would get together. We would all make dumplings together. My grandma would literally like roll out dough and flatten dumpling wrappers, and everyone else just kind of sat
Stuff
around
them.
up them. Yeah, exactly. They all look very different. That was like my earliest memory of like helping out in the kitchen, and
And you all sit around and critique each other's rapping skills, right? I get it. I get it.
my family always said that dumplings are like snowflakes, so not one are the same. So that's how I teach all our cooks. She was like, "Don't worry about consistency of dumplings; they're supposed to be slightly different."
It's great. Look at these life lessons from early mentors, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so you come to did you come straight to New York to go to culinary school, or were you working in the city a little bit in kitchens and getting a feel of what it would be like to do this longer term, or
Yeah. I graduated high school, went straight to culinary school. And I graduated culinary school when I was pretty much 19, because the culinary program was only 18 months. So it was really quick. I was going to school at the same time. I was volunteering at the James Beard House,
oh wow.
my days off, and because I wanted to learn more. I actually got my first job through the James Beard House, just cooking for one of the chefs that was local in New York City. But yeah, and then I cooked in nothing, no restaurants that's like, that's crazy or Michelin starred or like well known, just small restaurants for a very long time up until uh basically 2015, 2014, when I left New York City. and moved down to Charleston with my wife. But yeah, it's been like a good chunk of my career in New York City.
Yeah, and I love, I love your being modest with, like, you just worked at small places. I mean, some really neighborhood powerhouses that have been long standing, and,
Yeah,
sometimes we always say at Culinary Agents, like, not everyone wants to work at a Michelin-starred kitchen, right?
right.
Sometimes you get different experiences working in the neighborhood hotspot or just the smaller place where, um would you say that you because you were in, I mean, some smaller places, but some larger places, did that give you, different exposure to or responsibilities that you maybe wouldn't have gotten if you chose to work at other places? Or
Yeah, I think being in smaller restaurants and just like for instance, my first sous chef job was at Joseph Leonard in the West Village.
love
Uh,
that place.
yeah, and it's still open, which is insane. That's a long time ago. But I joined the team I think a year after they opened. I know for a fact that I didn't initially know I wanted to cook Chinese food. You go to culinary school, you learn French, you learn classic American, but you don't learn a lot about Chinese cuisine. And so I just went out thinking that yeah, I want to cook French, I want to cook American, but I knew that I wanted to cook something that's comforting for people. I never had an interest in high end cooking, or just like tweezer food. So I joined Joseph Leonard, and yeah, because it was a small restaurant group back then, and uh, there wasn't a lot of people on the staff. So I always worked super hard. I always put my head down. That's what my mom always told me to do. Like, put your head down, just work hard. And so yeah, I climbed the ladder really fast. I was line cook for a very few short months before I was sous chef. And then soon after that, like I feel like a year, not even after that, I was the CDC at the Chez Sardine, which opened um,
Yeah,
a
down the road.
after, yeah. And then yeah, so like I feel like I sometimes I wish I spent more time as a line cook, because that was like super fun for me. Line cook is always fun. Getting yourself in the weeds, putting yourself out of the weeds. But yeah, I climbed the management ladder super fast. I think I was with the company 3 years maybe, and the most, and went from line cook to CDC.
Yeah, I love that you said sometimes you wish you were still a line cook. It's,
Yeah.
as you look at different careers and positions and how you can progress, like, once you reach management level, it's like a
Yeah.
whole other ballgame. And then once you're an owner, it's like next level,
Yeah.
right? Now you're like, wait a second, are
Yeah.
you getting on the line ever? No, just kidding. I'm
I
sure
get
you're on the line.
I get on the line. I feel like I wash more dishes than I cook anymore. But I tell everyone that work for us that no job's too small, and like we try not to do the hierarchy thing. Because like it doesn't really do anything for anyone. I like to treat everyone equally. It's because if my dishwasher wants to be a line cook and wants to learn, has the willingness to learn, then yeah, absolutely, I would teach you that. There's no job. Also, there's no job too small. Like I'll jump in the dish pit when they need help. I'll do whatever I need to do to make this restaurant work. Because end of the day, we are just one big team.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Sink and swim together, right?
Exactly.
Um, so you had your time in New York, you had some great experiences, worked for some, great businesses, and then you moved down south.
I did.
So talk me through that transition, like, at this point where you're like, I want a restaurant of my own one day, or I wanna do my own thing," and
Yeah, after graduating culinary school, I made a goal for myself to open a restaurant by the time I was 30. But that was my goal. And I think when we moved out of New York, I was probably in my or mid-20s, I think. And I just, Chez Sardine had just closed. So I didn't have a job. And then I was like, I looked around and just thought, oh, you know what? I just don't think New York was the place for me to, either open a business or buy a home. I just didn't see that happening for me because, like, well, New York is everything is getting more expensive. Well, everywhere is. But we just took some time off because, I was jobless, and came down to Charleston, visited a friend who was working down here, who was my old sous chef at one of the restaurants I worked for in the West Village. And just kind of fell in love with Charleston just because it was beautiful, and it is still beautiful, and it was a lot slower, and just a really good change of pace of life. And my friend happened to was in the process of opening a restaurant of himself. And he's like, "Oh, why don't you just move down, help me open this restaurant, and then figure it out." So I was like, "Yeah, okay." I have nothing else to do. Like, didn't think Charleston would be forever. Just come hang out for a year or two, and then move on to somewhere else. But moved down here, and he we met out in some bar, and he's like, "Oh, the restaurant is indefinitely delayed." So I was in the new city, no job, and yeah, and it just felt like it was a great opportunity to start my own thing because I have always worked hard in my life, and I still do, and I just thought like if I'm gonna work this hard, I should work for myself and not work for someone else. And so yeah, like that's how we started our like kind of restaurant journey. Just yeah, I love randomness pretty much.
Hey, some of the most beautiful things come
Yeah.
randomly.
Yeah.
And you started with food truck
Like,
first
we
at
did,
first.
we did. Yeah, it was, called Short Grain, because it was a, food truck that was kind of a Japanese style food truck. Cause it was heavily influenced by my time spent cooking at Chez Sardine, because I just really fell in love with, like, Japanese food, especially the style of Japanese foods that we were cooking, which was it was very quirky and fun. It wasn't very traditional. And so, yeah, we started a food truck because we wanted to do in brick and mortar, but we didn't know exactly what part of the city wanted to open it. At the same time, like, we didn't want to get outside investors, so we just took whatever savings that we did have, and we opened the food truck. So now we had, um, like I think 40 grand to our name. Yeah, so we bought a really old trailer. We bought a used truck, and I didn't drive at all in New York because you didn't have to.
Right.
I went from not driving to learning how to drag a 17-foot trailer with a giant truck and having to park that and all that. So it was pretty wild time. It seems like a lifetime ago that we had the food truck. So it was insane.
Yeah, what would you say? Because we often get, folks who make that like goal, like that I want a food truck one day, and,
Yeah.
um, what would you say was the hardest thing about setting that business up and getting it off the ground that would be, like, different than doing a brick and mortar?
I think I think the hardest part about opening your own business, either honestly, either food truck or restaurant, is just that putting yourself out there, like cooking something that you're obviously passionate about, but not knowing that if it will be received well or not. When we moved down to Charleston, there weren't a lot of food trucks. Definitely no food truck that was just serving raw fish all the time. So it
Out in
was
the heat.
yeah, out in the out August sun of Charleston serving, sashimi. So yeah, I think the hardest part about, just any business in the restaurant industry is just putting yourself out there. Either, you're passionate about the food or wine, the cocktails or whatever it is. Obviously, food trucks cost a little bit less, and I feel like it's always I highly suggest it for anyone who's trying to start their own business because, you can't if your concept doesn't work out well in the food truck, you can change it for a very low cost, versus a restaurant. It's hard to rebrand yourself that way. And then we also got to travel, a lot. Drove around all over the city, parked in all different places, and kind of found our people, which eventually drove them to our restaurant instead of like having to. It was kind of basically like a free advertising.
I was gonna say that's a
Yeah,
very strategic way to, like, build a following,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And a name for yourself.
Yeah, it was great.
Um
We went to all the different parts of Charleston, like there's Mount Pleasant, there's James Island, there's what
Mhm.
so like we went to all of this. So like now we have all our regulars are all most of them are still from our food truck days. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, that's great. It's great, like, putting yourself out there, marketing, you gotta you gotta do what it takes, right? And were you while you were doing this, were you, like, brainstorming, like, "Okay, I know what concept I wanna open when I find that space," or were you already thinking I'm sure you were thinking about the next step. You seem like you're
I,
a go-getter.
yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment, I think is what.
Yeah.
Um I honestly we did not I did not think about what Jackrabbit would be. We didn't have the concept or the name for Jackrabbit. Uh we for the longest time we thought the next space, the physical space that we open would just be an expansion or extension of what short is. I was very into the Japanese culture of izakayas and having gone to so many in New York while working in the industry. And so that's what we thought we would do, like, oh, like a Japanese izakaya, and there weren't any in Charleston at all. So I was like, oh, this is a great concept. We bring something new. Um, but as we cooked on the food truck and did pop ups, and our my food just started slowly shifting more Chinese. As I'm trying to learn more Japanese food, it's like, well, why am I learning more about this food when I have a whole entire cuisine or culture behind me that I very much enjoy eating and cooking, but I'm not selling it to people. So it's like, well, like we should just make Chinese food. So at some point, I think our whole concept just shifted from, especially when we started doing pop ups after the food truck, we're just like, oh, let's just make Chinese food. Let's just make our quirky version of Chinese food. This Chinese food, but it's not really Chinese food. So I think it just naturally started pivoting towards what Jackrabbit Philly is today.
I love it. I love it. So once you have the concept, did you start looking for a space, right? Because
We did,
those
yeah,
pieces need to fit together too.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, we actually forced ourselves to sell short grain, because we knew that if we didn't sell short grain, we will always have like this kind of backup to fall onto, right? If we didn't find a brick and mortar, we can still keep doing the food truck. But we knew the food truck limited us to only so much. So I think, yeah, we sold the food truck. We did pop-ups for a very long time, almost 2 years, I think, before we found the first Jackrabbit Philly space. And that's solely because we're very particular about spaces, as everyone are. Like, we knew we wanted a space that had a lot of personality and a lot of history. We didn't want to go into a new build, just 'cause that's the type of people we are. Our house is very like just thrifted everything. And but yeah, like, and we knew that we only had so much money for only so big of a space too. So
Of
uh
that authentic and realistic. I like that
yeah,
combination.
we knew we wanted a neighborhood spot because my favorite restaurant of all time is always diners. This is like, especially growing up in New York, no matter what time you walk into a diner, you felt welcome and you can get anything you want. Right?
Yeah.
It felt comfortable. And you didn't like, there were no surprises. It's always just like no thrills and delicious. So all those things in mind, we finally ended up in North Charleston in Park Circle, in a space that used to be, I think, the first gay bar in North Charleston. It was called Deja Vu 2, and there was a stage in there. There was like stripper poles. There was still the original tiles that was in there that was made from asbestos. It was Yeah, it was insane. Like like it was crazy, and it was like so small. I think it was only 1,800 square feet. But
When you walked in, you're like, "Perfect."
this shithole is absolutely perfect. uh but yeah, like, we put all our savings into it, all our money, and we spent, I think, 300, and I want to say 16 or $60,000. Uh, you know, tearing everything down and rebuilding and all that. So it was every single penny that we had, and we couldn't be more proud of what we built.
Yeah, and congratulations, on all of it because, sometimes we hear when we have leaders on here and they talk through, like, kind of their first restaurant they build and, lessons learned and what they would do differently if they did it all over.
Yeah.
A common one is, I spent too much money on the initial build out,
Yeah.
on things that were unnecessary, and in that, that was something that they were always saying, "If I did it again, I would do things differently."
Right.
Um, so sometimes it's better to have limited resources up front.
Yeah, well, my wife and I are very crafty about that. Like, we were complete opposite. We're like, "Let's save as much as money we can when we're building this restaurant." So it's like tons and tons of things in the restaurant are thrifted. We do whatever work we can do ourselves. We will do ourselves. Like, for instance, the new Jackrabbit space, every single bench, table, any place that needs to be stained, we're all stained by us and our employees. Just to save us some money there. Where we spend the money where we need to spend the money, but save the money
Yeah.
where we don't need to be spending the money. So
Yeah. I mean, some would say that that's just called smart. And
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, I mean, I think as a small business owner, especially when you're kind of getting the momentum and your processes in place and and all that stuff, I think it's really important. It's really important. There's way too many unknowns, and if you can control your costs, that's like one thing you can control.
Yeah. That's something you can never control, actually.
Yeah. Exactly. Great. So talk about, because it sounds like you had a lot going on all together at the same time, between opening your first location and then going on to Top Chef. And was that all happening at the same time as far as recording and
Oh gosh. Well, we our journey has been really crazy. We opened our first Jackrabbit space November of 2019.
19? Oh, right, right. Couple months before COVID.
So a couple of months before COVID, we were super busy. The first November, December, January, February. Like obviously the food truck worked out great because yeah, people were just coming from all over town. And all of a sudden the pandemic happened, so it hit us really hard. And something that they don't teach you in culinary school, how to deal with natural disasters or a pandemic. And so yeah, we didn't know what to do. Obviously we shut down immediately, and because our staff felt uncomfortable working. So it's like, well, if our staff feel uncomfortable working, I can't force them to work. And if there's no staff, there's no restaurant. So we shut down immediately. We tried to pay them, kept them on payroll as long as we could. We're to the point, like, at some point we just started running out of money. So we had to save some money to reopen. So unfortunately we had to like let people go and they went on unemployment. But they stuck with us, because we took whatever remaining money and we started buying groceries for everyone weekly, just like because everyone was in need of help.
Yeah.
So that was very tough. But luckily, being down here, that being in the red state, that we didn't stay closed for too long, because it was we were forced to close by the state for a week only, and then
Oh,
soon after
wow.
that, it was people can do
That's right.
takeouts. Okay, and then like people were doing takeout, and like a week later, and they were like, "Oh, you can do distance seating now." So we were still not comfortable, but then like everyone else was doing it, so people stopped getting takeout from us because people were able to go out to restaurants again. So we started just force ourselves into distance seating, which then force ourselves into removing all our parking lot, turning that into outdoor seating, and it was just such a wild thing that I can't like I still can't believe that was part of like our life just not too many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was happening, and then luckily we started to get busy again, and this is also why we're terrible business owners, I think, because we realized that we have some really amazing staff, front of house and back to house. And in order for them to grow and selfishly wanted to keep them, that the only way to do that was to expand. And that's when we opened King. Yeah, so we had our first Jackrabbit Philly, then we spent, I think, about $1.4 million to open King. That we did not, hold back at all on the restaurant because, there was a smokehouse, there was all these other
Yeah.
that we didn't know about. It's a whole different concept that we didn't understand or know about. So that was definitely like a learning experience for us. So we had those two restaurants running, and then 6 months after King was open, we had a fire at King, which forced us to shut down again and then spend more money to rebuild. And I think soon after that, 4 months after that is when I went to Top Chef. Uh, and at the same time, we were rebuilding uh, a new space for Jackrabbit. So while I was away for Top Chef, my wife was running Jackrabbit Philly, King Barbecue, and building out a new space.
Nice.
So it was, yeah,
Superwoman.
oh my god, and like God bless her, like just like holy crap. Um, and I was only able to talk to her 20 minutes a week. So like and then she tried not to tell me anything about the restaurant, so she didn't want me to worry. But it was just such a crazy, crazy time. And literally as soon as I got back, the next day I worked a double at King because we were short staff, and then went into building out the new space. It was just yeah, just what a wild.
Yeah, the life of entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I bet you wouldn't trade it for anything else.
Oh, yeah, no, like, sometimes it gets very hard. There are days where you're, like, stressed out and overworked, and, you're just like my wife are constantly, "Oh, I don't wanna do this anymore. When can we retire? I don't wanna do this anymore." And then but there are more times where you walk through the restaurant when it's, busy or not, you see all the happy customers, eating, and also seeing a happy staff is really amazing for me, I worked in a lot of restaurants where, uh, staffs were, not necessarily treated the best, and, I think Corin and I, when we opened, this business, we wanted to change the industry, however we can. But yeah, like there's the hard parts, but at the end of the day, it's very, very gratifying.
Yeah, I mean, think about bringing your style of cuisine and your take on that to an area that probably hasn't really tasted that before or been exposed to that, especially with your spin.
Right.
And then also creating jobs, right?
Yeah.
Creating jobs and you're expanding. And that's, I mean, that's the whole thing you mentioned earlier, about wanting to retain great staff. And that's a very smart strategy that people do often
Right.
when they plan for growth, right? And how do we challenge our leadership team more?
Right.
Open another concept,
Right.
glutton for punishment. You said it, right? Keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Before don't blink, you're gonna have 6 concepts under your belt soon.
No, my wife will murder me.
Don't worry, we'll help you guys with staffing. No. Um, so great. I mean, so amongst all this stuff, what are some of the things that you do to kinda keep yourself, on an even keel, right? I don't like saying balanced because, there's so many I'm sure you have all these balls in the air, but, like, how do you keep yourself inspired and, like, learning? Because it's easy to kind of go, put your head down and continue to barrel through.
I think, like if it's funny you say that because right, I think right after the pandemic was very much that, because after the pandemic, I feel like I can say this for every single restaurant owner is that everyone was just trying to pay bills, trying to make money, trying to pay bills. It didn't matter what you were serving anymore. It's whatever people wanted to pay for. So you can, yeah, get the paychecks and pay your bills. And for the longest time, Jackrabbit was very stale because like I was worried about being creative. And so I just served food that I didn't really want to serve, but I knew it would sell. Um, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I went on Top Chef. It was because I haven't, live in the big city, you're always being exposed to different cuisines, or your restaurants are opening all the time, and um, so you get to have these different experiences all the time, like flavors and techniques or whatever. And I didn't have that during the pandemic, and so it's kind of dulled out, and I felt very uninspired. But I feel like Top Chef really turned that around for me a lot. Being challenged by these other very talented chefs, um, kind of pushed my creativity forward. And then beyond top of that, I just love like Corey and I love eating out. Like go to some of our favorite restaurants around town is very inspiring. Traveling is always very inspiring for me as well. Um, and I we made sure that people's lives in a restaurant are well balanced as well, because that was super important for me, having felt very burnt out in New York. That Jackrabbit is only a 4-day work week, just because that was important for me to have, for my staff to have a 3-day off. Because I always remember coming out as a line cook, your first day, you're so exhausted, you don't want to do anything. And then your second day, you're like doing laundry or playing catch up or any chores. And then you might go out a little bit, but all of a sudden, next day, you have to go back to work. So it was important for me to have, to have that work life balance for our staff. So them having 3 days off, and us having like 3 days closed is nice for everyone to kind of reset, so we don't feel that burnout. Uh,
Yeah.
so like and then yeah, like Cora and I, like yeah, how much money do we really need? Like we make enough money to pay bills, and that's great. We put a little bit of it away for our retirement, and that's all we kind of need. So 4 days was perfect, and I tell my staff this all the time. Like I feel very blessed, and that they should feel blessed that they found something they love to do. Either it's cooking or serving or whichever. Um, But end of the day, none of us would do any of this if we didn't have to pay bills, right?
Yeah.
So you might as well work in the place that you feel like you're taken care of and you feel seen and you feel heard and that your work life balance is nice as well taken care of. It's not just about work every single day and paying bills um and not get to enjoy your life while you're doing it. So yeah, so like we have 3 days off and feel that's a very great reset for everybody.
Yeah, and what you just said there is so important on so many levels. I
Yeah.
think that is a great blueprint that a lot of I would say, and I don't want to say newer owners, but like, there's a new wave of thinking, if you will. Especially post pandemic, pushing it a little bit more is this like longevity. This is a career. If you're doing what you love and you want to keep doing it, right? It's
Right.
hard on your body, it's hard on your mind, it's
Yeah.
long hours. And no matter how much you love something, you can't let it drive you into,
Right.
dark places. So
Yeah.
having leadership who understands this and builds it into their model as they're opening new businesses is so important. And
Yeah.
we are noticing more and more people putting that at the top of the list as they're thinking about what kind of business do they want to have? What kind of team do they want to have? What culture are we going to have?
Right.
It all goes hand in hand.
Oh, for
So kudos to you. I mean, I love hearing that because, if, like you said, if you have no staff, you have no business, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We will have no restaurant.
Yeah, and also, oh, by the way, for the owners as well, right? You do no good to anybody if you're, working yourself into the ground as well.
For
So,
sure.
great. On that note, we're gonna go to quick fire.
Okay, fun.
What advice would you tell your younger self?
Stop worrying about what other people think. Be realistically you, because end of the day, people that's what people love.
What's your advice for someone struggling in the industry?
I mean, this industry is tough. I can personally say we have a lot of struggles. We constantly struggle at King all the time. We chose a neighborhood that's up and coming, but we wanted to do that because we wanted to again build a restaurant for the community where we can keep prices low. Um, and yeah, like this, you just can't give up. If you're super passionate about this and you love what you do and you just have to keep going forward. That's the only direction we can go is keep going forward, and just know that at some point down the line, and that you'll look back like, oh man, like I remember the times that we were struggling, but I'm glad that I never gave up because like that's gonna be a very good feeling.
What's your advice for fellow hospitality leaders?
Treat your people well. Please, for God's sake, treat your people well. There's tons of restaurants owners out there, and I hope that they all know that you won't have a restaurant without your people. Like we have Corey. I mean, when we started food truck, it's just Corey and I, just two people, right? And we hired someone. It was like, oh my god, we have one employee. But now we have I don't know, probably like not a lot. Like I think it's only like 40 employees, but it's still like 40 employees, and we would not have any of we won't have anything that we have in our lives without any of our employees present and past. So it's very important to treat your staff well. Don't get greedy. Like how much money do you really freaking need? Like you really need to open 7 days a week. Do you really need to add on the extra services, extra this, extra that? Like just make sure your staff are happy and like and if you have a happy staff, you have a happy restaurant, then it'll naturally just all work out. So just treat your staff well.
Great. Thank you. We're gonna end there. On that note, thank you
Great.
so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you.
Remember, success looks different for everyone in hospitality. No two paths are the same. If you have a leader or a topic you want to hear about, email media@culinaryaagents.com. Hospitality on the Rise is brought to you by Culinary Agents, connecting top talent with employers since 2012. Whether you're hiring or looking for your next opportunity, join us at culinaryagents.com. For more inspiration, subscribe to Hospitality on the Rise and visit hospitalitycareerpaths.com, a free platform by Culinary Agents. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. And if you love this episode, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration.